Hi, I'm Emily. Today I will be showing you how I watercolor paint a lei of ʻūlei, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks. Okay, I'm sorry for that super awkward intro. I am still getting used to recording myself, so I apologize for that. But anyways, yeah, we're going to be painting a lei of ʻūlei, and just make sure you pronounce that with the I at the end, ʻūlei instead of ʻūlei. Very different meanings behind those two words, and you can look them up if you're interested. But on to today's painting. The materials you're going to need for this picture are all of your typical watercolor materials. I'm going to be going over the colors that I used. I use 3 colors. I typically tend to stick to this rule of 3 colors for one painting, and the reason behind that is it's very tempting to use a ton of colors, and if you do that, your picture usually ends up in the end being crazy, but in a bad kind of way. So using 3 colors kind of keeps consistency throughout your painting. I'm going to be using a cooler green, for the leaves, a lighter green for the younger leaves and the seeds, and a red to accentuate the seeds. So you can do something similar you just pick 2 greens and a red, or 2 greens and a maroon, or 2 greens and a brown, and then we can get started. First is our pencil sketch. Gonna draw the outline of where the lei is gonna be, so it's kind of in that middle portion. And then we're gonna start with the seeds of the ʻūlei. So I'm just drawing circles in a cluster, so clusters of 2, clusters of 3 on my paper. And these are important to put first, because if you look at the lei or at the plant, those are gonna be sticking out the most, so you wanna draw and paint those first to make sure that they are seen in front of everything else that you're gonna paint. After the seeds, you're gonna draw short lines coming out of the seeds and all pointed in the same direction, and this is to remind you, to make you think of where the small young leaves are coming out. So all plants, they have like the big old leaves, and then towards where the seeds are, you usually have lighter colored, smaller, less crisp or fried. Sorry, that's a lot of information about leaves that you probably didn't want to know about. Anyways, yeah. So that's your basic sketch that you're going to start with. And now onto brushes. We are fortunate today to only use 1 brush, and I'm recommending a small brush with a tip, a pointy tip. All brushes have tips, obviously, but this one is pointy, and that's to help us with the shape of the leaves. I'm going to demonstrate the basics of what this lei consists of. So we have the seed pods, which are, you're just going to do a circle, and then what I do is I do the circle with the lighter green first, and then I go around it with the darker green and let those 2 colors sort of mix in together. That gives like a shade change from light to dark. And while it's still wet, I go back in and I dab a little bit of my maroon color in the very center, so that it gives it that accent, makes it look real authentic. Excuse the buzzing, there was a bee that just flew by and distracted me. So now back to what we were doing. I had to stop, and now we're back. We're going to be drawing next. I'm going to be painting for you the leaves. So the leaves of ʻūlei are rounded at the ends, and there's a bunch of them on like one stem. So it almost looks, it makes me think of a millipede or a centipede, like the way they have all those legs. That's kind of how the leaves, in my mind, are drawn. After I draw each bunch of leaves, I go back in while it's still wet with a darker color, or just more of that color, and I touch the inside of each of the leaves, and that kind of makes it appear to have that stem, also the shadows of the leaves coming into the stem. It's little details like that that really make the piece unique and yours. So if you have ideas of what you want to do differently, then you should definitely go for it. Now that we practiced, we're going to go to our final paper and start drawing our lei. So we start with the seeds. Like I said before, it's a circle of the lighter green first, and then while it's still wet, you go around that circle with the darker color. You see how they blend together, and then while that's still wet, you go in with your maroon accent and you touch just the inside of the seed. And you'll notice I'm using 2 brushes, which you might be thinking, oh my gosh, you lied to me, you said there was only one. You can use just one. I'm only using two because then I don't have to wash my brush every time I need to use the red and then the green. For the greens, I just use the same one, but for the red, and so I don't have to keep washing my brush, I just picked up another one. It can be any brush to put in that dab of maroon. And the process repeats. So you do this over and over again. You'll notice that I'm skipping around with my clusters, and that's so I can give a chance for the seed I drew before to dry. If you draw the seeds right next to each other without letting them dry, they're going to blend together, and then it's just going to be a big blob of greens and reds. So I do one, and then I move on, do the next one, and then later on I'll come back and fill those in. But right now I'm going to speed it up. To get the idea, you can pause or keep watching and painting with me while I do the rest of the seeds.
Right here, I made a mistake, and this is super awesome to point out because if something like this happens while it's still wet, you can take your brush, dip it in water, put a lot of water over that spot and kind of like massage it in with your brush, and then take your paper towel and put it over it, and it kind of lifts most of the color off. When it dries, it'll be even lighter, and eventually we're going to paint over it anyways, but if that ever happens to you and you accidentally mark the paper, you can wet it really well and lift some of that off, kind of like an eraser.
Now that we did all the seeds, we're going to go back in with the leaves. And so using those lines that we had drawn originally, I'm going to kind of paint my centipede legs / leaves around that line. And you're going to be painting the one layer of color and then go back in with a more pigmented version of that color and drop in. So once again, even with the leaves, I'm skipping around. That gives the leaves a chance to dry before painting next to them, so it doesn't all just blend together in one big blob. And you'll notice all the leaves are kind of going in the same diagonal direction, either diagonally up and down or on the flip side. That doesn't really make sense, but basically they're not just pointing out in all directions, because when you actually make a lei, it's braided in or wrapped in from one direction. So kind of, even though we're painting, it's good to have a small knowledge of how these things are actually made, because then it makes more sense when you're painting why things go a certain direction or how they behave. Okay, the final step of this lei is, now that we have the clusters of seeds and some of the leaves painted in, you just kind of repeat the process. You go and you fill in all the white space staying within kind of your border lines of where the lei should be. And yeah, you just go in and you fill in with alternating. You can do a bunch of leaves, a bunch of seeds, and that's just to give it that depth of, you know, some of the leaves are behind, some of the seeds are on top, some of them maybe got tucked behind a leaf, and doing it in this kind of mixed order creates that sense of depth. And you just fill it in, whatever looks good to you, and then you'll be done. So speeding up again to the end so that you can see the finished lei.